Thank you so much. I'm Paige. I'm an alcoholic and so grateful to be here with you guys today. So 15, 20 minutes. And I was saying a little prayer before I started it. I was just asking, where am I called to go? What am I directed to do? And to some of you, this is no surprise. Let's do a big book bounce around. So it's a format where I share my experience, strength, and hope, bouncing around the big book. And if you're like, girl, I have never heard of that format before, don't you worry, it's because I made it up. But we're in Chicago, so I thought I'd do it Chicago style, just like the Chicago style pizza. So I know some of you are like, girl, we have strong opinions. So this is a weird place to start off for a big book bounce around, but if you have your book to hand, let's go to page 135. And if you don't have your book to hand and you're like, girl, why would I do that? Completely reasonable. I'm going to do all the reading, so don't you worry about it. Don't grab your book if you don't want to. I'm not going to tell anyone what to do. So page 135, the second full paragraph. Here is a case in point. One of our friends was a heavy smoker and coffee drinker. An alcoholic? Smoking cigarettes? Drinking coffee? I have been to Chicago, and I have gone to the mustard seed group. And I will say, I do know how you find it. You're in a strange city. You don't know where you are. You're trying to find the meeting. You're not sure with the Google Maps. You just find outside like of a church or a community center where there's a bunch of people chain smoking and chain vaping. Us, we would never. All right. So there was no doubt he overindulged. Seeing this and meaning to be helpful, his wife commenced to admonish him about it. That means she nagged him. He admitted he was overdoing these things, but he frankly said he was not ready to stop. His wife is one of those persons who really feels there is something rather sinful about those commodities. So she nagged. And I know that nagging is the most effective way to get me to do anything. And I know nobody here at this lovely, wonderful meeting had ever been nagged about your alcoholism, nagged about your drinking, or nagged about coffee or cigarettes. And we know that when we receive unsolicited advice about our behavior, it's like, boy, I am an open book. Please tell me more about what you think I need to do. No, you go F yourself. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to smoke more just at you, That's not diagnostic of alcoholism, but I'm just trying to tie some threads together. So it says, and her intolerance finally threw him into a fit of anger. He got drunk. Of course, our friend was wrong, dead wrong. He had to painfully admit that and mend his spiritual fences. That means make amends. Though he is now a most effective member of Alcoholics Anonymous, he still smokes and drinks coffee, but neither his wife nor anyone else stands in judgment. She sees she was wrong to make a burning issue out of such matters when his more serious ailments were being rapidly cured. And I know this is a weird place to dive into the big book study or this big book bounce around. But this guy, his name is Earl T. And he is the gentleman that started Alcoholics Anonymous in Chicago. And you might be like, that's the guy? Yikes. Like, this is maybe not the representation I was hoping for the Windy City. But here's the thing. That is the message. The chapter that we're in is called The Family Afterwards. And they're talking about struggles that a family will experience after the alcoholic has had the spiritual awakening that is promised in Alcoholics Anonymous as the result of the 12 steps. So the message for the family is, girl, pick your battles. Pick your battles. If you have a recovered alcoholic who's working with others and they're chain smoking, well, at least they're, you know what I mean? But there's a message for people like us, and we'll bounce around and talk about that. But let's go and let's talk about Earl, and let's talk about his experience. So let's dive over to the very bottom paragraph of page 260. And it's very bottom paragraph of page 260. So it says, several months later, and this is Earl telling his story. Several months later, Dad was back in Chicago. And I'm so sorry for those who have that song stuck in your head where it's like, I was back in Chicago. It's going to be there all day, and I apologize profusely. Several months later, Dad was back in Chicago to pick me up again. But this time, my attitude was entirely different. I could not wait to tell him that I wanted help. If these men in Akron had anything that I wanted, anything. I wanted it and would do anything to get it. I was completely licked by alcohol. And that moment, that is a step one experience. We're going to talk about this, but it is this idea that, man, he knew that he was in trouble. He knew that everything that he had tried to stay sober on his own power was not sufficient and would not work. And that statement that he had, that statement that he made is a statement that is made to us that we get to turn to a question on page 58 in How It Works. Thank you, Emily, for reading. Standing ovation to anyone that reads How It Works. Yeah. And in it, the statement that I get to turn into a question is, do I want what you have? Am I willing to go to any length to get it? And what do we have in Alcoholics Anonymous? Because it's important to be clear about what is on offer. What we have in Alcoholics Anonymous is permanent, contented sobriety. Not just don't drink one day at a time. No, permanent, contented sobriety. Now, we got some fine print, which is rude because, it's going to ask me to do things. And there's a whole chapter called Into Action, which, again, rude. When's the into taking a nap and resting on my laurels? Am I right, guys? But if I have come to the end of myself, if I have come to the end of my ideas, my plans, my designs, let me try it my way, and I can see that everything that I tried to put between me and that first drink failed, I'm willing and I'm open to accepting another way. He says, I can still remember very distinctly getting into Akron at 11 p.m. and routing the same Howard out of bed to do something about me. He spent 2 hours telling me his story. He said he had finally learned that drinking was a fatal illness made up of an allergy plus an obsession. And once drinking had passed from habit to obsession, we were completely hopeless. And I could look forward only to spending the balance of our lives in mental institutions or to death. And that is what alcoholism is. Alcoholism is an illness that encompasses the allergy of the body. Now, the allergy of the body, I'll tell you what it looks like for me. And you guys can let me know if you relate or not. Because, it might be different. Maybe it's different in Chicago. It's not. Alcoholism is alcoholism. But let me tell you what happens to me. I take a drink and I experience... you guys know what I'm talking about? I take that drink and I get that... I get that ease. I get that relief. I get that release. I get that sense of ease and comfort. And it's like a little switch that goes off in the back of my head and it tells me more. And the more that I drink, the more that I need to drink. See, I take a drink and I start to get thirstier. You guys know what I'm talking about? I take a drink and my drink demands a second. And that second drink insists on 4. And that fourth drink will not relent until I've had 8. And my 8th drink is screaming at me until I've had 16. And so on and so forth. And you see, I don't know about you, but what happens to me is I take a drink, and I drink beyond lines in the sand. I drink until I lose my shoes. I drink until I lose my pants. I drink until I lose my hopes. I drink until I lose my dreams, my relationships, my dignity, my self-respect. I drink myself into pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. And you see, what happens is I scrape myself up off the bathroom floor. And I will say that is it. I am never going to drink again. But it talks about this allergy plus an obsession. Now, the obsession of the mind is the thought that I have when I am as sober as I am today, but my illness is untreated. And it is a thought that takes me back again and again and again to that first drink, even though it is destroying my life. It is a little thought that looks like this time will be different. Nobody will ever know. I'll just go out for 3 drinks. My problem is non-conference approved dry goods, but I can drink like a lady. Or it looks like, my problem was drinking with Canadians, but I'm in Chicago. There's Land of Lincoln. There's no alcoholics in the Land of Lincoln. There's no way. It looks like a thought that is on me all day that says, take a drink, take a drink, take a drink. Take a drink. until what little willpower I was able to muster is inevitably eroded away and I take that drink. It looks like I'm out there living my life and I get a case of the suddenlies. You guys know what I'm talking about? The suddenlies. I have a drink in my hand and I almost don't know how it happened. It looks like F this, F that. If you were feeling the way that I was feeling, you'd have to get drunk too. I'm going to kill myself anyways, so why don't I take a drink? Now, if I have any experiences in my life of the allergy, what that means is that there will never be a time when I can ever safely drink again. But more important than that is if I have any experiences in my life of the obsession, where I've said I'm not going to do it again, or I'm going to stay sober for this event, or stay sober for this vacation, or stay sober when the Blackhawks are playing, or stay sober for whatever event it is, and I drink again. What that means is I have the obsession of the mind. And it is important to understand the obsession of the mind because that is what makes this illness hopeless. It is not that I can never ever safely drink again. It is that I can never ever safely drink again, but I will. I will. Step one is a concession of the inevitability of the first drink. That there is nothing that I've got in and of my power to stop myself from taking that first drink. And I did not try everything, but everything that I tried failed. And that is what it means to be somebody with this hopelessness. Because when I see that hopelessness, that is prime real estate for the hope that is on offer. So let's skip down. And so, very bottom, paragraph 261. The next afternoon and evening, 2 other men visited me, and each told me his story and the things that they were doing to try to recover from this tragic illness. They had that certain something that seemed to glow, a peace, a serenity combined with happiness. And so, in that moment, I'm not going to say it's his formal step 2, but the idea that maybe, maybe that the fraction of the happiness and the freedom that the members in Alcoholics Anonymous had found, those members who had recovered, those members who had the light on in their eyes, the hope in their spirit, that glow about them, that maybe, just maybe, the spiritual awakening that happened to them could be available to me. That is a second step experience. I don't need to understand God. In fact, in the 1930s, the word understand meant to know through experience. And at step 2, I could not possibly have had any experience with this power. But all I am asked to believe is that you guys have better things to do than lie about your spiritual experience. That maybe one fraction of what has happened to you could happen to me if I take the course of action that you have taken. And that's it. I just need to believe that there could be a solution. And the solution we have in Alcoholics Anonymous is a spiritual awakening. And how we get that is the 12 steps. Let's go to the bottom of page 262. It says, the day before I was due to go back to Chicago, it was Dr. Bob's afternoon off. I don't got a whole lot of time, but I'm still going to make this joke. He had visited some of the meetings that they had, gone to some of the Oxford group meetings, so he knew what it was about. He had talked to some members. But in case you didn't know, Dr. Bob, his profession was proctologist. He was a colorectal surgeon. So imagine you know nothing of alcoholism. And you travel to Akron, Ohio, in the hopes that there could be an answer for you. And you go to the Akron City Hospital, and you, Dr. Robert Holbrook Smith, and you look up the index, and you're looking, and you see Dr. Robert Holbrook Smith, colorectal surgeon. And in that moment, you think that the solution for alcoholism is invasive anal surgery. And all I'm saying is they went in. I'm just going to throw that out there. That 4th step, not so scary now, is all I'm going to say. You know what I mean? They went in. So it was Dr. Bob's afternoon off. He had me to the office, and we spent 3 or 4 hours. 3 or 4 hours, not 3 or 4 months, not 3 or 4 years, not 3 or 4 days even, but 3 or 4 hours formally going through the 6-step program as it was at that time. The 6 steps were, And so it says 1, complete deflation. And that complete deflation is of my ego, of my ability to do it my way. I see that this alcoholism has me cornered and I cannot do it on my own. When it says dependence and guidance from a higher power, I mean, we're pointing to 2, we're pointing to 3. I'll throw it out there. We're pointing to 6 and 7 in step 11. Moral inventory, that sounds like a 4th step. Confession, that sounds like a 5th step. Restitution, that sounds like step 9. And continued work with other alcoholics, that sounds like step 12. And that is the genesis of what the 12 steps are today. Dr. Bob led me through all of these steps. And so what happened is they sat together and he took him through step 4, through step 5, through step 6, through step 7, maybe not quite in that order, step 8, and then he would go out from there to make amends. He would return to Chicago to make his amends, to try to make things right. And to go try to help others. So let's now go to page 264, the very bottom paragraph. And before we really dive in, I'll give you a sec to find it, 264, bottom paragraph. What I want to emphasize is it does not take long to get well in Alcoholics Anonymous. It does not take long to recover from the seemingly hopeless state of mind and of body. It does not take long to work the 12 steps, and we can work them quite thoroughly and quite quickly. The 2 of those things can happen together. Now, if you are new, if you haven't taken the actions of the steps, I know that does not sound like good news, because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of step 5 and I'm afraid of step 9. I mean, I might tell you, no, I'm just really busy and I can't work on my 4, but it's because I'm afraid of 5. And I'm sitting on that 8 because I'm afraid of 9. But I want you to know that my experience is that if and when I dive in, man, I don't have time to be afraid. And momentum always overcomes my fear. And I can get well, and we can get well very, very quickly in Alcoholics Anonymous. Very quickly. And we can do that thoroughly. And that is a message of hope if you are new, if you're relapsing, if you are struggling, or if you've been around this thing a while and the magic is gone. So bottom of 264. A few months after I made my original trip to Akron, I was feeling pretty cocky. An alcoholic with ego that has returned? What? Shocking. Shocking. That I am as surprised as you guys are. Earl, come on, guy. What? That never happens. I was feeling pretty cocky, and I didn't think my wife was treating me with proper respect. You know what she was doing? Nagging about the cigarettes and the coffee. Now that I was an outstanding citizen, not just sober, but I am outstanding. Keep in mind, baseline sober, and I'm like, outstanding. I have not wet my pants behind a dumpster. I am an outstanding citizen now, you know? Oh. So it says, so I set out to get drunk deliberately just to teach her what she was missing. And in that moment, that was the obsession of the mind. He could not see the truth. He could not differentiate the true and the false. He had that thought that when he was sober, and he's like, I'm going to do it deliberately. F her, that'll teach her. But that is still the obsession of the mind. And in that moment, he could not think about the first drink. He couldn't play the tape to the end. He couldn't think of the consequences. He couldn't phone a friend. The obsession was on him. And it says, a week later, I had to get an old friend from Akron to spend 2 days sobering me up. That was my lesson. That one could not take the moral inventory and then file it away. That the alcoholic has to continue to take inventory every day if he expects to get well and stay well. That was my only slip, and it taught me a valuable lesson. So the lesson for the family members is, pick your battles, you know, but the lesson for us is that these 12 steps are not a set it and forget it program. These 12 steps are how I live my life, and that I cannot take some inventory in step 4 and just leave it there. The process of inventory, the process of 4 through 9, steps 4 through 9 is the engine of Alcoholics Anonymous. It is the motor, it is the vehicle that takes me from the hopelessness of step 1 to the hope of 10, 11, 12, to the hope of being a recovered alcoholic. But that vehicle is not going to continue to move if I do not continue to take action. So I need to continue to take that inventory in my 10th step and in my 11th step in my evening review. And I need to go and work with others. And here's my experience. The more I take my own inventory, the more that I see, the more that I'm able to set right in the world, and the more that I'm able to live with you at perfect peace and ease. But more importantly than that, the more I am able to help others. And that's what we get to do here. And that's where the magic is. If you've not had that opportunity, what I will end on is please let us help you. Because Earl was a great help to all of us. So thank you for letting me share.